Welcome, everyone. Thanks for being here today with not a long notice period. We are today with Melissa Lang, aka Mel. She's the Agile Coach at Koa Health. You know, maybe you know this company because Alberto Betela, one of our mentors, works there, and he has been proactively talking about it. And they recently raised a vast amount of money to keep growing and going out of the moonshot factory from Telefonica. So let's Mel present herself and we can start. Thank you. The stage is yours.
Thanks, Alvaro. Hi, everybody. It's really nice to meet you. My name is Mel. And just a brief introduction. So I've been working with software developers and product development organizations for more than 25 years. And in a previous life, I used to be a cook. And before that, I used to produce concerts. So I've definitely moved around a lot, worked with a lot of different people. And the thing I always come back to that attracts me is just working with curious people. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now at Koa.
Great. So let's see if we can get the most out of your experience after so many years in the tech industry, working with different tech teams, but always software developers. And I'm sure of that in this last stage as Koa. I know some of them. I am grateful to know some of the engineers you are working with every single day. And I can witness that there is a lot of talent there and they have a profound sense of how people skills, how really personal leadership and personal development matters for these kind of high performance teams. And that's what I want to get from you today. So for those of you that haven't been in the live interviews that we are performing at Leader, it's an informal format. I will just deliver some of the questions and I will be curious in your behalf. And at the end, we will have some time to answer your own questions. Some of them you already asked before in the type form, and some of them you can just launch it during the session in the chat, or just raise your hand with the icon so we can give you the mic at the end so you can ask directly to Mel. So let's start from the beginning. I would like you to explain clearly what is self-reflection, because it's a concept that is not well known, and I would love if you can explain it to our audience.
Sure. So it's actually simpler than it sounds, right? Self-reflection is the practice of you thinking about where you are in the present moment and why you are where you are. So it's really about, I was mentioning before that I'm curious about people, and it's self-reflection is getting curious about yourself, basically. So rather than kind of staying on autopilot and living in distraction, it's really taking a moment to pause and really think about, why am I doing what I'm doing right now? Why am I feeling what I'm feeling right now? And what am I going to do with this information?
Great. One of the questions I was promoting also in the initial communication was about how you can do it, because it's a not very well known topic. I think all of us agree that it's obvious and it's beneficial not to be on autopilot, but at the end it's difficult because this is not a topic, this is not a skill that we train at school, high school, university, not even in the job. So some of us here may not know how to practice it every day, or how often we need to do it in order to get the most out of this practice and really get out of this autopilot life and start thinking what we want, how we want it, which are the next steps. Because in theory it looks really nice, but at the end what matters is about practicing it.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you explain the people to start doing it, where they can start?
Okay, so the method that I usually share with my coaching clients, so I do individual coaching as well, is doing a weekly review. So, again, I want to make it as simple to start that you can do it. So we're trying to reduce the friction from beginning this habit of self-reflection. So what I ask people to do is at the end of the week or the beginning of the week to do a short session with themselves called the week in review. And it's journaling basically. So you can either type it in a document on your computer or you can write. Some people don't like doing either, and I'd say, well, just record yourself. But the point is that you set aside, let's say, 20 minutes at the end of the week or the beginning of the week to do this week in review. So how does it work? The first part is really for the data-driven people. So I ask you to rate your past week on a scale of 1 to 10. So it was an 8 or it was a 7. And so you have that number and you're always going to, so week by week by week, you can see how your numbers go up and down. So that's really good for measuring and for data quality. The next thing I ask is, what are the reasons why you gave it that score? So 3 bullets or 4 bullets, just key things that made it a 7 or a 6 or a 5. And then I have the kind of deeper reflection part where the question I ask people to answer is why do you think it was so? And what can you do in the coming week to move that number one step up?
Yeah.
And then to wrap it up, to really prepare the person for the week ahead, it's, what are 3 things that you want to get done in the week ahead and check back on in your next weekly review. So it's a bit of collecting data. It's a bit of review. So review the events of the past week. Then it's deeper reflection on why. And then it's forward looking. So then we're going into action. So what are you going to do in the next 7 days that are going to help you move that number up? And that's basically it.
Yeah. And in general, how much time people need to see a step up to go from 7 to 8 or from 7 to 9?
So here's the thing. I'm actually not so interested in going from 7 to 9. What I'm interested in is seeing the trends and seeing what's happening in the week that makes it a 7 and what happened in the other week that made it a 9, rather than kind of thinking of that forward trajectory, right? I want to know what are the things that make me feel like I'm doing great and what are the things that are bringing me down and how can I deal with those things that are bringing me down energy wise so I can start, looking critically at what's happening there and figuring out what to do.
Right. So first self-reflection and self-understanding, self-awareness, and then improvement will come, but
Yeah.
later, right? I think it's important first. Okay.
Yeah. So that's one basic kind of self-reflection practice, right? Then there's ones that I do with mostly engineering managers, right? So people who are managing other people, and it's called the captain's log, and it's basically just reflecting about difficult decisions. And so the log is, what was the decision I made? What was the context of how I had to make this decision? So what was happening? Then what was the decision I made? And then you actually wait a few days and you go back to that log and you think of what could I have done differently? And so that's just a really short feedback loop for yourself about how you're making decisions about things, but you're thinking again, like what made me make that original decision and what would I do now that it's like 2 days later, how could I have handled it differently? And that starts training the muscle for us to pause and think before we react. And that's kind of the whole point. Well, one of the main points of
No.
developing self-reflection is to stop ourselves from this knee-jerk reaction thing, to really like cultivate wisdom in ourselves, right? We're learning every time we do something. And so if you stop and think, you can internalize that knowledge that you've acquired and use it again.
Let me know, why is that important? So you have mentioned about wisdom, you have mentioned about learning. Um, why is that important on top of those topics?
Um, so from a purely selfish point of view, the reason why it's important is because if we don't intentionally um, engage in our lives, we'll soon find that we're at the end of our lives and things happen that, we I don't know, it's like time is a very limited resource, right? And we can be intentional about how we use our time, or we can just let it float away from us. And self-reflection is about bringing intentionality back into what you're doing and why you're doing it. It's understanding, what do I really want and why am I doing what I'm doing? And let me get off the hamster wheel so I can go in a forward direction, in the direction that I want to go to, that's my dream. And the only way you can do that is if you think about where you are, because we're in a society where it's all about being busy. And I can spend, you know, 12 hours a day just being busy, answering emails, answering Slack messages, answering WhatsApp messages, and running around on my hamster wheel. And then it's the end of the day. And what did I spend that time on? I was in react mode the whole time. I wasn't in create mode. I wasn't in produce mode. I was just reacting to things that were coming at me. And that's also an important reason why we cultivate self-reflection, so that we're intentional in what we do.
Yeah. So someone else or the people around you are deciding your life, are designing your life, launching those events, and then you are reacting to them, for example, from a job opportunity from a recruiter to a new project, a new challenge in your company. And at the end, everything seems to be okay. But maybe after 10 or 15 years, you end up in a place that is like,
How did I get here?
is that the life I was pursuing?
Yeah.
And maybe it's too late at the end. 10, 15 years is a long time, because our time is really precious and it's really short. So 10 to 15 years doing something that you were not deciding. Maybe you were well paid, you were satisfied overall, you were in a nice environment. But what did you want to do with your life?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, the other part of it, especially for people who are like maybe entering some new career, or people who are recently promoted, this self-reflection thing is really important for also like synthesizing all the knowledge that you're gaining. When you first start a new job, there's like so much stuff coming in at you. You need to process that. And the only way you can process it is if you stop and like, order your thoughts and look at what all this information you're accumulating and make sense of it. Otherwise, it's just going to be like in and out, and you're not going to internalize it. You're not going to learn. So really it's a self-knowledge mechanism, a knowledge mechanism, a planning mechanism, a live your fullest life mechanism. It's really
Yeah.
kind of integral.
No, it's great. It's really connected with the topics that we are always trying to teach, which is about start leading yourself before you can lead a team in tech, right? And in order to lead yourself, you need to define where your life is going, and you need to take the driving wheel and not just going into the passenger seats, right? So this is really important. And I would like to recall the topic that you have mentioned. That is, there is a relationship between this self-reflection and decision making through this, for example, this exercise about the captain's log, for
Mhm.
example. What is the link? How they are related to each other?
So so the link, I mean, on a really basic level, you can think of it as like everything is an experiment that you're running, right? And if you think of like a scientist running an experiment, they're capturing data, they're taking measurements, they're like observing and then recording. And then at the end of the experiment, they're looking at everything and trying to make sense of it. And so with decision making, you're faced with all these different situations, but eventually a similar situation will come up again. And instead of jumping to react, you can go back to your captain's log and say, oh, I had this similar situation 2 years ago in this other company I was working with. This is what I did then. But in my captain's log, I realized that I could have done something different. So I'm going to try it this time. So it's really, it's creating kind of a knowledge register for yourself so that you don't have to react every time. You don't have to recreate the decision. You can go back and find a similar situation you were in and try something different.
Yeah. And with that time to reflect on what you can do different, next time you are actually improving your decision. So you are just following a path. So everything is continuous improvement.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, also it's just, when we're in these kind of stressful situations, it doesn't take very long for our physical body to react to it, right? It takes like 90 seconds for you to go into kind of fear and protect mode. And so getting into the habit, establishing that practice of reflection and pausing so that you don't just knee-jerk reaction, but you think first and then plan and then do. That just will make you such a better leader than just, impulse.
Great. Any other way that we can use self-reflection to improve? Because we have mentioned that captain's log, it's already a way to take the same decision, make the same decision the next time, improving a bit, right? Because you reflected on that time back in time. Is there any other way that we can use it to improve?
Yeah. So another technique I really like to do, and this is something I do more when either I'm entering a new domain of knowledge, or I sometimes do it for a bigger review, like my annual review. I'll do a mind map. I really like mind maps a lot because that helps me make connections between things that aren't obviously connected. So I like kind of have the categories from like the wheel of life, right? So what are the different aspects of my life that I'm looking at? I'm looking at my career, my finances, my family, my relationships, my health and well-being, where I live, my goals, right? And so I use those categories, and then I start mind mapping out what was going on for me in the year. It's easy for me now because I can take my weekly reviews and just kind of do that. And then I start drawing all the connectors, and it's a really powerful thing just to kind of view the trajectory of where things kind of bloomed out or shrunk. Some years I like made more of an effort in different areas of my life than others, and just kind of evaluating that. So, there's different levels of depth that you can get into. Personally, I journal every day, so but I keep it really short. I'm not trying to be perfect, right? And I think trying to like have a really tight methodology might not help everyone. I think it's more about just practicing it.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you can even do it at the end of the day. Was it a good day or a bad day? Smiley face, sad face, flat face. There's your data again, right? We do this with teams. We do moodometers or whatever to see the team health. Why don't we do it for ourselves and see how is today for me? Why wasn't it a good day?
Great. So, yep, I'm using mind maps as well. I think one other tool that we can use is this yearly review, which is no more than being lazy about daily journaling or weekly journaling, right? At the end, it's just postponing for the end of the year to reflect in just one time, in one shot, everything that happened during the year. So the problem with that, I think, is that you get only the the biggest things,
Yep.
right? But you cannot reflect on the details, and maybe but it's not maybe like sure, most of the time the magic is in the details.
Yep.
It's in that subtle details that makes things different from one time to the next one. So I'm using that as well, and that's one of the best self-reflection exercises. Everything started for me with this yearly self-reflection, and then I understood that I was not getting all the details, and then I started to do it like quarterly.
Mm-hmm.
For example, for job opportunities, year by year is not enough. You need to see how you are progressing with the skills you need for your next job opportunity. If you know where you are going on, where you are going to, for example, for me, it was about growing as a CTO to be able to deal with bigger teams.
Yep.
So what do you need for that? What do you need if you want to be the remote manager? Back in the time before COVID, where it was not so typical to have a CTO um, that is acting remotely. I
Yep.
needed to master remote tools. I needed to master communication, over communication, documentation of everything. So all the agreements are explicit, and doing it once per year was not enough.
Yeah.
I needed to do it more frequently, so I could evaluate with this kind of what you mentioned, like 1 to 10. How do you think you are today and why? So it's like, okay, last time I was a 6, I cannot be less than a 6 because every day I'm progressing at least something, right? So I was evaluating, for example, 7, but why? So 13 topics or 13 habits that you have taken in order to really demonstrate that today you are a 7 in this skill and you are not a 6. And then when I started to do it quarterly is when I got into the habit, and I started to see how it worked, and I was just gamifying myself. So
Yeah,
I
exactly.
was trying to do things, and it's like you need to justify yourself
Yeah.
why today you are 7.1. So then it started to be weekly. It's like I need to write it because I want my external judge that will come in 3 months. I want to have the document prepared for him, so I don't need to remember everything. It's like as a freelance, you don't take all the bills, all the invoices, and you do everything at once, which is a great effort. So I wanted to keep it regularly, so that's why I started to move from year to quarter to month to week.
Yeah.
Right?
That's a great progression. I mean, so here's a way you could totally flip it, right? You can, instead of reflecting back, you can also project forward, and that's a different kind of self-reflection, right? That's the visioning part, where you project yourself into, where do I want to be in 3 months, and describe it in as rich detail as you can. Like, what are you doing, where are you, how what's your typical day look like? See that picture of where you want to be in whatever, 6 months, 5 years, and where you are today, and how are you going to get there. but
Yeah.
but that exercise, I mean, that's a reflection, in my opinion. That's a reflection exercise, even though you're looking into the future, because you're thinking about what it is you want, and you're articulating it, and you're making it really specific so that you can know how to get there, because
Yeah.
otherwise, again, we're just going to be wandering around.
Yeah, this is the visualization exercise we promote it in the CTO week, and at the end,
Right.
why this canvas is here is because I want to remind myself where I want to be in 2 years from now, and I was publishing that I think this week in LinkedIn. It's a reminder. So this visualization exercise, when you put it like with details, a certain place, a certain time, and then you start going backwards. So what I need to be there. So if I want to live in Indonesia, I need a work that is remote. And that's why I was starting to think about how can I be a remote manager?
Mm,
What do I need to demonstrate my future company to demonstrate that I can lead the team remotely, so I can live in Indonesia instead of being in a city
yeah.
in Spain, right? So this backward exercise is what's like define my career path at the end. Is like putting the steps one at a time, but starting from the end, from the end.
Yeah, definitely. So that just made me think of of one thing that I wanted to also share today, which is um, kind of something to watch out for when you're doing self-reflection. So self-reflection isn't about beating yourself up judging yourself, getting down on yourself for, maybe not getting to 7.1 for another week, right? Because that doesn't really help you. So part of self-reflection is really the pure, observing where you are right now and why, and try it without self-judgment, because that's just gonna make it way harder for you to. Do you know what I'm saying, Alvaro? Like, I
Yeah.
should have done that, or I should do that, all the should stuff. Try to leave it out of your self-reflection. Try to make your self-reflection just, an honest conversation with yourself about what you're feeling and where you are, and what you did last week,
Yeah.
and maybe why.
That's one of my weakest points, and it has been really detected when I have been working with coaches. They really detect it really quick. It's like you are judging yourself a lot, right? You are self-demanding, and it's like I haven't found a boss yet that is demanding me as much as I am demanding myself, which at some point makes you feel safe in a job because you know that you are going to feel the expectations. But at the same time, it's and this is what Alphonse, now mentor in Leader, was telling me the first day. In just 20 minutes talking, random talk, he was telling me, you are really self-demanding. And then he told me, this can be preventing you to unleash your potential because you are living to demonstrate to yourself that you can, and you are judging yourself, you are judging everything that you do. And maybe it's kind of putting some boundaries where if you don't just demand yourself, you just do what you want, maybe you can explode. Right?
Exactly. Let go, right? So it's a bit of letting go, because even this is what I worry about, right? So if we are so hard on ourselves, it's exactly what your friend said, but it's also, could that also influence how we are managing our teams, right? So are we bringing that same kind of super high level of standard in the way we're managing our teams, instead of creating kind of a safe to fail environment where people can experiment and grow and make mistakes and learn, right? So let's teach the self-reflection part of it. Let's, be able to like look and understand what's going on without, of course, there's always going to be some judgment, but maybe less judgment than normal. Okay,
Yeah.
I have a dog that's up. I just have to open.
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
Sorry.
Yeah, no. You were advising me, and I can now advise you that she told me that maybe she needs to go. So yeah, coming back to that, I don't mean that I'm doing it perfectly, and that part of self-judgment is an example. I think that my obsession at some point, it could be considered an obsession, but my obsession with continuous improvement and being better every single day, at some point, it's not beneficial.
Yeah.
So I still need to find the balance, but it's as you mentioned, I am just trying. Everything is an experiment for me, and in the latest year, because this all started right now 1 year when I had the discussion with Alphonse. So it has been one crazy year, and I have already proved myself a lot of things just because I let it flow a bit, I let it go a bit, so not judging so much. So when things were going great, I'm celebrating, but I'm not just pushing harder to see you need to go to the next level now, because at the end, I cannot enjoy life if I am only thinking about improving at work, improving on my professional career, because it's demanding my time, and then I'm not balancing with my personal life.
Yep.
So letting it go a bit has made me really much more productive, because I know that my time for work is limited. Yep. And if I'm not reaching the goal, nothing is going to happen. So what is the worst thing that is going to happen now that I'm running a real company? You are not reaching the goal, so what is going to happen? Are you going to lose your home? Are you going to lose any kind of beloved one? That's not going to happen. So don't treat goals and OKRs so hard that is preventing you to unleash your potential, or prevent you to be really happy or enjoy the time that you are not working. You need to disconnect. You need to be more aware of the things that you mentioned, why you are doing what you are doing. So
Yeah.
taking time to reflect on what you do and why you did it sometimes is much more important than just thinking on the next step again. So having your mind every time in the future is not good, as it's not good to have your mind every single day in the past, because that's not going to change.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Vinko just nailed it, right? He said it's like in exercising, rest is hugely important. If you don't rest, you won't improve. That's also necessary for self-development. So true. It's so true. You will burn yourself out if you don't stop and pause. And that's the thing. It's the
you
same
need
thing.
to consolidate, right?
Yeah,
Learn and consolidate and reflect and measure and learn. So the next time you learn, the next learning cycle, you can apply the learnings because you have taken time to connect the dots, to connect the ideas, to connect the reason with the I mean the problem with the solution, the factor that impacted most. So
yeah,
you take this into account on the next time, and this is about our brain, it's about memory as well, and you need that time to consolidate the knowledge and have a real knowledge base.
yeah,
Otherwise, if some I think it's Socrates that said, if you cannot apply later what you learn, your learning is useless.
exactly.
So you need to memorize it. You need to keep it here, or keep it in a log, or keep it in a task management system, in a journal, or whatever. But that knowledge has to be somewhere so you can come back to that and actually use it.
Yeah,
If you are not going to use it, it's waste, is useless knowledge. And this is what they said about the knowledge at university, right? As you are not using integrals or gradients or matrices anymore,
yeah.
it's like it's useless knowledge, and at some point is the same concept, right?
Definitely, definitely. And what's that other quote that you see a lot? You know, insanity is repeating, trying to fix this thing by doing the same thing over and over. So,
Exactly.
and that happens when we're not reflecting, right? It's when we're in automatic pilot, we just default to default, which is, our reptilian brain or whatever. So in react mode. So you need to build
Yeah.
your knowledge. Yeah.
So one question is about which are the questions you can do to yourself, so you can prompt this self-reflection, which is another way to start with that. So if you know which questions you need to ask to yourself, you are acting as your own coach. So
Yeah.
I think that topic could be really impacting the people that is here watching us, in order to start these practices.
Okay, so I have a bunch. I actually wrote them down for this. Here's a really good one. How am I complicit in creating the conditions I say I don't want? So let me break it down. So, what am I doing to create the situation that I don't like? What am I contributing to the situation, or not doing, or not taking action on, that makes this current, makes my day a 4 or 3? Um, And then the other one I really like a lot is, where am I making things more complicated than they should be? Right. And I go back to this question a lot. Like, so I was actually looking back on some of my journals, and there was this period of time, this past October, where I was just like, every day I was like circling around the same struggle I had. And I finally noticed that I was doing it. And so I had to like put my coach Mel hat and coach myself. And it was like, what would you tell your friend? Right. So that's also a really good one. Like, if you're struggling with a situation in your job, or trying to make a decision, what would you tell your friend? And just write out what you would say to them, as if
Yeah.
it's not you, but somebody else.
You are able to get out of yourself and have this
Exactly.
perspective of yourself from the outside, which is a point of view that we need to develop and train as well. It's really, really powerful. And for me, it has been only the latest years that I have tried it and improved it over time. But it's really important to see yourself out of your body.
Yeah.
So being able to see yourself acting, reacting, making decisions, interacting with others and judging yourself as you are judging others, because we are much more self-demanding with ourselves than we are with others, and that can be penalizing, can be negative.
Yeah.
So when you put that situation and all this concept in someone else, your friend, would
It's
you
safe.
react with more empathy with that
Yeah.
friend because you love him? You
Yeah.
need to love yourself as well. You need to treat yourself as you treat others, right?
Yeah.
Not worse.
Exactly. So those two questions I use a lot, right? What am I contributing that's making this particularly difficult for myself? And that's, getting a little bit more critical and like what part do I have to play in this? Because it's not being done to me. I'm involved in it, right? And then the other one, what would you tell your friend? Those are two real powerful questions. And if there's like more, if it's like things that you're scared of or you have fear about, it's like, what is the worst possible outcome? And just face it and write about what the worst possible outcome could be. And you might find out that it's not as bad as you thought. It might be that you made a mistake and then you got a chance to learn, for instance,
No,
right?
no.
It's like we're not in kind of mission critical nuclear bomb kind of things where we're going to destroy humanity or the
Yes.
world, right? So
Yes.
so kind of putting it in perspective is also really important.
Absolutely true. You need to make it relative. At the end, we are in a position that we are the 1% of the whole world in terms of the privileges we have in our lives. So we need to start relativizing some of the decisions we make, and some of the pressure we have about the next results, because at the end, nothing is going to really change. What's the worst thing that can happen to you?
Yeah.
Right? It is
Exactly.
you are fired is the worst thing you can have. True. Do you know how much demand are for people like you that are learning from their mistakes, that have the right attitude and really understand, and it's empathic with why this happened, and it's learning for the next time so it's not happening anymore. We have the privilege to be in a place where there is much more offer, much more demand than offer. So at the end, you will find another place. You will be able to create another working environment that is as nice as the one you had. And if you made the mistake, you make sure that you learn from it so it's not happening anymore. But if the worst thing that can happen is like that, we are safe. So let's not make it like the whole world for that, because you still have people that loves you. You still have a home in a great city. You have a lot of resources to find the next job. It's not like that, right? There is much more people suffering, really suffering for making the wrong decisions, or even worse, they are not able to make decisions for their own lives. They are not able to drive their own lives, and others are making the decision on their behalf. And that's it. 99% of the people in this world.
Yeah.
Remember that we are in the first world, all of us. So
Yeah.
relativize it.
And then another set, so like just so you to understand kind of your behavior patterns, um, is when I'm reflecting, I like to say, like, where am I feeling this physically? So I can recognize it, because sometimes, for instance, like actually something happened yesterday, and I noticed that my heart was starting to beat a little bit faster, and I was getting like a little bit, I don't know, like clenching my jaw, and then I noticed the physical thing, and I was like, why am I feeling that right now? What's going on? And that was just like a 5-minute self-reflection that I didn't write down, but I noticed kind of the physical manifestation of anxiety and stress, and I realized what I was stressing about, and then that's what I reflected on this morning, right? So I was writing about it this morning, why I felt that, and coaching myself basically.
Yeah, knowing yourself through those manifestations is really important, and is what made me realize about the stress. So for me, it's manifesting in my stomach. So when I feel that I have this kind of knot in the stomach, I know that I'm feeling stress. The other thing is that I woke up before the alarm. I start to wake up before 6 or 7 a.m. So if it's happening 3 times in a row, then I know that something is wrong on my body, which means that something is wrong on my life. It can be work, it can be family issues, but you now have this alarm system.
Yeah.
And having this alarm system we all have, but we need to stop and think about ourselves, how we feel, and recognize it. But we are always focused about the metrics, about the internal status of our infrastructure in tech, how powerful it is if you have this kind of wearable that is telling you without technology if something is going wrong.
Yeah.
We all have that internal system, and it's only about taking the time to reflect about the manifestations of that things that are worse, that are bad, but also those that are great, because you want to repeat that feeling over time. So what made you have goosebumps?
Yeah.
What happened?
Exciting. What was exciting for you? Like what, I love asking those kind of questions. Like, when was the last time you just like felt completely in the zone and in the flow, and what were you doing? And I love those. I love doing that.
Exactly. Put more of that in your life.
And we're smiling. I can tell you're thinking about it and I'm thinking about it, like, yeah, I can.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. And at some point, the sad part about this autopilot is like, it happens, we consider it normal, and we don't try to have more of that. So it's on us to get much more happiness and less sadness, but we are not reflecting enough on what is making us happy or sad to put more of that. So, for example, from your couple coming home and just touching your shoulder, for example, or your back, for me, it's releasing such amount of chemicals in my body. It's about goosebumps all the time. So it's like, why don't you put a practice in your daily life with your couple to have that every single day? 5 minutes. Can you ask your couple to have that part? Because it will make you feel much better every single day. Yeah. And then you can do something for her or him, which is making him or her feel better as well.
Definitely.
You are in control for that.
Yeah.
And it's like small gestures that will improve your overall life, your overall wellness, right? But you need to identify what is making you happy, what is making you sad, stressed, being under pressure, whatever it is. Put more of that or put less of that, and it's under your control. 24 hours are under your control. You decide.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, again, you can run it as experiments, right? So if I like, have a date night once a week, what is my relationship score? Or if I have a, whatever. Yeah, I love that. I love it. I love tuning into not just the negative, like what's bringing me down, but what's making me feel happy and full.
Exactly. It's like a P&L. You can earn more or you can waste less, but you have two ways to improve your results in your company, right? This is the same. It's not only about reducing what is making you feel unhappy, and that's why you are self-reflecting, but it's also about, I can do more of something. So for example, I took an idea from Patqua, because this yearly review, what he did is kind of treating it as a Scrum retrospective.
Okay.
So you know that the basic version is in the Scrum retrospective. One of the version is like, do more of that, do less of that. So it's not only about reflecting about the events and reflecting about the goals you have for the next year, but about what do I want to do more of, what do I want to do less of. And the more of is often overlooked. It's like, okay, this worked. Okay, do you want this to work more frequently? Do you want this to work at a higher level, at a higher dimension? Then do more of that.
Yeah.
Make sure that you have the room in your weekly schedule to have more of that, right? Whatever it is reading, is socializing, it's doing exercises, whatever it is.
Yeah, for sure. And again, it all comes down to self-knowledge. This is everything we're talking about. It's really knowing ourselves
Yeah.
on the different dimensions. And like the other cool thing, the big benefit I get from self-reflection is on the emotional side, like understanding how I am with emotion, what makes me angry, what makes me sad, why do I feel sad, why do I have regret, and also, what brings me joy and what makes me happy. But starting to develop that emotion vocabulary where you can really talk, who's going to read
Yeah.
it? It's like it's for you. This is the thing. You're writing for yourself. It's no one's going to open that document. Just write it for yourself and be honest with yourself.
That's it,
And
because in
it sounds easy, but actually some people find that really hard. It's kind of like they keep it, you start at this level and then you just have to be brave and like go a little bit deeper and a little bit deeper, and know that it's only for your eyes and only for you, and no one will
yes.
read it, no one will judge you.
Yeah, the bad thing is that in engineering we are all taught and educated in a way where we are just thinking about solving problems in the outside. So we don't have enough time during the educational part of our lives where we understand and we know how to treat ourselves, how to love ourselves, and not only focus on solving problems from an engineering point of view, but also solving our own problems, our own challenges, defining our own challenges and planning for our own challenges for the future, and driving our life from this point of view, from the feelings, from the emotions. And
Yep.
that's actually really tough because we are solving the problems of the society for the next 10 to 20 years, but at the same time we are not able to really solve our own problems and escape from miserable lives, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's hard, and that's why it's so important to have people like you that are really going deep into this emotional part that can be or can sound silly for some of them, and maybe others say that this is not the right stage or the right audience, but at the end I think it's the most important audience for these topics because it's the most underserved audience in the world
It
for
is.
these
It is.
topics.
I mean, if let's get really practical about it, right? I mean, so much of my job is dealing with helping people manage conflicts, right? So people are in a conflict situation and they come to me for help. And you can't really, I mean, you can try to resolve the conflict by staying at a very practical level, but there's feelings in there, right? Someone is upset. Someone is pissed off and angry. Someone is scared, maybe, right? And without acknowledging that, you're not really getting to the source, right? And you don't get that release, and it's not necessarily adequately resolved, in my opinion, unless you can kind of acknowledge where the feeling part of it.
Yeah, totally agree with you. So yeah, thank you so much for your time for these questions. I would like to jump into the questions of the audience.
Okay.
So I have seen a lot of moves. Thank you so much for your kind of side chat between you all, because that's great. That means that you are engaged with the topic and you are discussing on a parallel side, even if we are not touching the topic or mentioning your comments, but it's really great that you are participating during the conversation. So here, the first question I have was coming from the form, was asked by Miguel, and it was, is there any methodology or tool that could help us with the self-reflection? We have mentioned some of them already, but if
Yep.
you want to mention one more for Miguel, that would be great.
Well, so I would start with a weekly review, just once a week. Rate your week on a scale of 1 to 10. Why was it that number? What happened? And what do you want to do in the coming week?
Great.
Just,
That's driving everything else.
yeah.
Great. Yeah, another question from Vinco is, how can we develop the ability of getting in touch with our mood and our feelings? And if you have any suggestion here.
Well, the first thing is stopping. like stop yourself and say and check in and what am I feeling physically first of all? So we were talking about like when you feel stress, you feel it in your stomach. When I feel stress, I feel it kind of I get hot and my heart races, right? So what are you feeling physically and why are you feeling that? And what I find handy is just having kind of a document that lists emotions, right? We usually default to happy, sad, mad, mad, sad, glad, or whatever. But there's so many words in Spanish and English and whatever language to describe emotion. Like start using those words because they can be very precise about what you're feeling. So don't limit yourself to happy, sad, mad, but extend your vocabulary and map it to a physical feeling as well.
Actually, there is a list of adjectives related to the emotions. I think it's out there. I saw it some months ago. And I think having this at hand could help a lot because it's a lot. It's surprised, amazed, depressed,
Yeah.
curious. There is a lot of words that you can use to describe your day or in your weekly review, the things that are happening to you, so you can really understand because you are verbalizing it.
Yes.
If you are able to express with words, means that you really understand what you are talking about, which means that you are understanding your feelings, which is really complicated, but you need to start using the words.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great topic. There is another question here. I think it's a bit more technical. It's coming from Jaime. It's saying, I'm trying to guide a team colleague to develop his leadership and decision making, but he still has a lot of fears, doubts, imposter syndrome as well. Which self-reflection technique can you recommend to someone in this situation to break the loop of I can't do it? So kind of this fixed mindset, I think, is related to this growth mindset, fixed mindset topic.
So I would jump to that question, what's the worst possible outcome? I would go straight to that, like, and describe the worst possible outcome and then start asking the whys, right? So Jaime's job is just to ask the powerful open questions and let his guy answer it and have the long silences, but keep asking why until you get to the root of it.
Both of those topics are reflected in a book. If I can recommend you, Jaime, The Coaching Habit, with these 7 powerful questions to be able to make the person reflect and go deep into the problem without basically giving them the solution. Is just doing the right question at the right time. So these 7 questions in this Coaching Habit book are really great because the author is telling you which question to use in which moment, depending on the context and depending on the problem you want to solve or the person want to solve, right? So once some of them are for delegating effectively, some of them are for making the person reflect on this kind of topics. So in this case, for the growth mindset, this why to get to the final point will make the person reflect about the consequences. So in this case, Jaime, I know how you work in Bridge for Billions, and I know that you have this open culture where fail is not allowed, is recommended, because if you are failing means that you are trying.
Yes.
Right. So I would say, okay, let's try, because the worst thing that can happen is what you have answered. So once they have answered this question, is like, okay, if this is the worst case scenario, then let's try, right? What else?
Yeah, exactly.
Great. So we have those questions, and I think there is not anything else, and we are running out of time. It's just 2 minutes to end. So I think it's just in time. I have a new message. Okay. Yeah, you're welcome, Jaime. So if there is no more questions from my side, I have no more question. I think we have touched many topics that are really actionable, from tools to just the discussion. I think has been really insightful in some important topics like growth mindset, imposter syndrome, touching with your feelings, being able to verbalize about your feelings, taking as much time as possible with yourself. You need to love being with yourself. You are your best friend, is the person you spend most time with in your life.
It's
So
true.
you need to learn how to enjoy your time. That was one of the worst things I was doing in my life. And once I verbalized in my notebook, was one of the 10 first things I put in my journaling was, I don't know how to be with myself.
Mm.
I was feeling the slots in the afternoon, so I was not just getting alone,
Yeah.
because I knew that I was going to the computer again. So take time to be with yourself, learn to love being with yourself. Find these places in a book about the artist from one author that is called Julia. It's called the artist date. So dating with themselves. You need to find that slot to do what you like to do, that doesn't involve anyone else if you don't need it.
Yeah, definitely.
It can be painting, it can be watching a movie, it can be going to your favorite coffee store, it can be whatever, but make sure that you take time to be with yourself, with your thoughts, and doing what you really love, and not waiting for your partner, your friends, to be there to do what you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah, you
So
have to rely on yourself for sure.
So a lot of learnings today. Thank you very much, Mel, for being here, for sharing these topics. I
Sure.
would just like to recall that Mel is going to be here to continue this series, because if you don't know, this is going to be a series of topics that are all connected to each other. We will continue soon. And I would like to mention as well that this is actually the things that we are doing in Ignite. And I have the pleasure to have today here some of the participants like Sasha. This is what we are doing in Ignite, and we are officially launching a new edition for May. So if
Cool.
you want to really unleash these kind of things, this is what we are doing in Ignite, and it's about trying. We were recommending yesterday, like in the group, to one of the participants, Diego, to do a sports team, because he was afraid of that. He didn't want to do it, and he's like, hey, what is the worst case that can happen? Your friends laughing at you because you are not good enough for them? That's the worst case scenario. Then let's do it. I mean, you are going to be with your friends, you are going to have a fun time, right? Funny. So just do it, and you will get used to it, because it's all about learning and trying new things in order to go out of your comfort zone, getting more comfortable out of the comfort zone, which is will expand your mindset to be that growth mindset, where you are eager to learn, eager to try new things, because you know how beneficial it is for you, because you are improving yourself, you are expanding your knowledge, and you have more things to get when you have a new situation. You are able to reflect about what happened in your life before, and if you have many of those situations, it's going to be much easier for you to know how to react, to know how to make the right decision. So it's about exposing yourself to entropy and new things, and we were helping him in that silly point that you can think is silly. It's like, okay, is not a life changing to
Yeah.
be able to do team sports? Or maybe yes, maybe it's important for this person to start engaging with teams, with sports that are related to more people and not only individual sports.
Yeah.
Right. So everything can change your life. You don't know how far this will reach, and the first thing is that you unleash what you have inside, you reflect about what you have inside, and then you are able to drive those feelings and those decisions that you make in the right direction, because you are finally driving your life. So self-reflection is the first step. Everything starts with the inside. um, and I would like to finish with a quote that I heard right today. So it was about the relationship between X and stress. So if you think that your life is like an egg, you can think that if external forces break the egg, life ends. But if this is internal forces that are breaking the egg, that means that life begins.
Love it.
At the end, everything starts with yourself, and when everything starts from the inside, it's going to be great. So try to be more like friend of yourself, and take more time to be with yourself, and everything will be better. I don't have scientific approach or data, as Mel mentioned, to reflect on that, or to prove that. But if my case served, it has been a very different life when I started to spend time with myself. is the best investment I have done in my life by far, by far. Knowing myself, knowing what is better for me, and then doing things that I was just expecting someone else to do it with me, but I discovered that I can do it alone. That's by far the best investment I have done in my life. And this just happened recently. And how I have exploded personally and professionally has been amazing. So a recommendation: take time and love yourself a bit more.
Cool. Thanks so much, Alvaro.
Thank you for your time, to all of you, especially Mel. Thank you for being here, and see you really soon in the next topic of the series.
Cool. Bye.
Bye, everyone.